My name is DeJuan Kinchelow. I am a graduate of St. James School of Medicine. I am from Kansas City, Missouri. I went to undergrad at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth, Texas. I majored in biology with a minor in chemistry, so you could say I've kind of known I've always wanted to be a doctor. For me, medicine has been a journey since I was 13. I was actually writing an entrance essay for a private high school, and it was just an essay on who inspires you. So I didn't want to do something cliche and pick some famous person that everybody else does. So I ended up talking with my mom a lot and realizing that she kind of had a rags to riches physician story. And from that moment onward, she's always been my inspiration. And she is actually an emergency medicine physician. So I've always kind of been seeking the path to achieving what she achieved. So I've really just been following in my mom's footsteps by choice. And so from 13 onwards, my life plan has been how to get to medicine. So I was looking into Caribbean schools. I had applied to get into American med schools while I was still in college. I didn't get in. I didn't have the most competitive MCAT scores or even GPA from undergraduate. So I started researching into Caribbean schools, and I saw that St. James had a 95% USMLE Step 1 pass rate. At least at the time that I applied, that was the big thing. And it was one of the cheapest Caribbean medical schools, so it was an opportunity to get to where I wanted to go for a fraction of the cost of other schools. So it just made the most sense to me to pick a school that gave me the same opportunity as pretty much every other school for a fraction of the debt that other medical students graduate with. I'm one of the few students from the school that have kind of been on both campuses. When I actually got accepted, I was accepted to the Anguilla campus. Was there for 2 weeks before the first semester was supposed to start, and Hurricane Irma came, one of the worst hurricanes to hit the Caribbean, and it pretty much leveled Anguilla for the most part for a little bit. So stayed a week after the hurricane without power, electricity, cell phones, pretty much truly living in a third world country. And then the school offered to continue the semester in St. Vincent, the other campus. So I flew from Anguilla to St. Vincent, and because that was my first semester and St. Vincent was cheaper at the time, I was just like, might as well stay here. So I ended up staying in St. Vincent for the rest of my basic sciences, and honestly, I loved both islands. They are completely different, and it really kind of depends on what you want. Anguilla is a little bit quieter. The campus building is a little bit nicer. St. Vincent is louder, but a lot more social. There's always something to do if you're ever wanting to, especially after exams when you need to unwind. There's always something to go on in St. Vincent. But Anguilla, there is St. Martin right next to it, and I know a lot of students like to go over to St. Martin and relax and unwind after block exams as well. Most of the people I've talked to, whether they went to another Caribbean school, American schools, etc., they all kind of agree basic science is the hardest because it's mostly just book learning. You're learning all the foundations of medicine. Doing it on an island sounds very glorious. Everybody thinks like, oh, you study on a beach and whatnot, and that's really not the case. It's a lot more of you're sitting in a classroom and studying on your own. But realistically, what I always tell people, especially anybody who asks, like, your education is going to be what you make of it. So, you're in class for about at most 8 hours a day. How are you going to utilize that time to your best? Not everybody learns well from listening to a professor. I am somebody who doesn't really like lecture-based learning, so I did a lot of studying on my own, and I really took my education into my own hands, seeking out extra time with the professors, seeking out resources that are used by medical students across the globe, things like that. So basic science, it's hard, but it truly is, you will get out what you put into it. For step 1 studying, the big thing I would say is set a schedule and take breaks. So when I was studying, I was not very good at setting a schedule and taking a break. So I actually signed up to take a USMLE prep course to help just kind of establish that schedule and everything. And I thought that was wonderful for me, but obviously it depends on the resources you have. These courses are not cheap, so that is something to think about when you're applying or even looking at finances of if it's possible. Factor in that these classes do cost a lot of money, but for the most part, transitioning off the island into clinicals was fairly smooth. You really go from living in a third world country or developing nation where certain resources aren't as available, and then you come back to America, or you come to America if you're not from America, and you start to realize you have a lot more resources at your fingertips. So it was actually a wonderful transition going from like step one to clinicals and all that. My experience with clinical rotations is probably fairly unique, just in the sense of I only got through 2 full rotations before COVID hit, and the school gave us the option to either continue our rotations or take time off. I chose to continue through because I figured, as somebody who wanted to go into emergency medicine, I would be a frontline worker in any future pandemic, so it didn't make sense to me to sit out now while I was learning. So I continued on. I personally didn't have any virtual rotations, but I know some people did. But the big difference for me was we were actually barred from a lot of hospitals because they were trying to limit it to only the medically necessary personnel to limit how many people are at risk of contracting COVID. So clinical rotations were great. You get a lot of time with the preceptors. They'll ask you questions over knowledge that you should have. They're all usually willing to teach, especially if you have specific questions on a patient you see or a topic you're struggling with. But yeah, the pandemic was the biggest setback in my clinical rotations, but I still feel like I got the best out of everything I was able to get out of. I know a lot of people who do know me know that this was my second time applying for Match, and getting that email on Match Monday of you matched was a surreal feeling. It still doesn't feel real. I'm leaving the office soon to move to New York, and it still has not set in that I'm about to start residency, but the weight on your shoulders of everything you've worked for and the 4+ years it takes you to get through things being lifted off it's not a very well describable feeling. Like, it's something unlike anything you will ever experience again. Like, your whole life's work, especially if you're somebody like me who knew very early on, seeing that all come to fruition in one single email, it really just kind of, you don't believe it when you actually read it. Like, I had to read that email a couple times to actually believe that this was real life and I wasn't dreaming. So it's surreal. That's the best word I can use to describe it. I've always been a big believer in paying it forward. So the school gave me every opportunity. I had teaching assistants that were students who were further along than me. I had professors who helped me, preceptors and clinical rotations. So the fact that like all these people, I was able to accumulate all of their knowledge and help and be successful. Coming into the office, it was great to be able to take all of that knowledge and experience I had gained and give it to up-and-coming students who are trying to get to the position that I was in, getting a successful match. So it was honestly a wonderful experience coming in and being able to help the next generation of doctors get to the position that I am now in. So I absolutely love being able to teach and help students. So honestly, I couldn't have thought of a better thing to do in between match cycles. Future plans, I'm moving to Brooklyn, New York, getting accustomed to the area, getting to meet all of my wonderful co-interns, the other residents in the program, the ones both leaving and the ones that are still going to be there, and really just kind of getting accustomed to that before that July 1st start date. Couple vacations, post-match trips planned, but other than that, it's really just, And that time from match to starting the program, it's a time to relax and really just, you've worked so hard for so long in your life. The best thing you can do at that time is take a little bit to just relax, breathe, and realize you did it. It is real life.